Stadium. I'm just writing Eric Trump a thank you note for mentioning me during your show tonight, so just getting that off.
You know, I'm sitting here, and he goes, the Lord says, you know who's great defending Melania? Laura Ingraham. And I'm like, what about chopped liver?
Well, first of all,
what is that all about?
Listen, this is why you and I have been friends for 18 years. You are #1 in cable. You're like number almost, close to Russian radio. A little mention of someone else, you're like, oh, what about me? Oh, my gosh. Typical man.
You know why?
Man.
Let's be honest. Everybody in this business, and you know this is true, is overpaid, lazy, and narcissistic. And most of them are all agenda. We're honest. We're talk shows. We do journalism. We do straight interviews. We do investigative reporting. We do commentary. We do opinion. We do it all.
We do radio. We do this. I mean, oh, God.
By the way, how great was it, Rush, 30 years paving the way for all of us?
I would not. 18 years ago, I got into radio. You and I started the same year at national radio. You were doing other stuff, but 2001.
All right.
I never would have done it.
I was the guy in Santa Barbara in 1987, and then Huntsville, Alabama, and then Atlanta. You started at the top. I'm so sorry. It was so hard for you.
I was a lawyer, okay? You have a little pity for me as a lawyer. I was a lawyer.
Why don't we go on another 40 minutes? We'll just fill the show with us bantering back and forth and bickering like children.
One Friday when you're not taking a vacation day. We're going to do that
Seriously,
together.
You and Tucker take more vacation than anybody.
Well, because you live in a palace. You don't have to go anywhere. The rest of us live in ramblers, okay?
I can't win this debate. I can't win.
No, you can't.
Right,
you had a great
show.
show tonight. All right, talk to you later.
See you later.
Welcome to Washington. We are going to do that show one night. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle. We have a very busy Thursday night. The president wrapping up another raucous rally just a short while ago amidst renewed bad blood between the White House and the media. Counsel to the president, Kellyanne Conway, will be here in just moments to react to both. Herman Cain will stop by later, and he'll break down the looming battle between the president and former President Obama in the midterms. But first, partisan reporters and faux outrage. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, for the past few days, a certain cable news reporter has been dining out and whining about this scene from Tuesday's Trump rally. The day after, he basked in the afterglow of the insults with contrived dismay.
Honestly, it felt like we weren't in America anymore. I don't know how to put it any more plainly than that. Americans should not be treating their fellow Americans in this way.
Okay, I have a question. Do these guys ever think about how they treat America? Hearing reporters complain about the angry reception they get in red state America is kind of like having an arsonist lecture us about campfire safety. As Billy Joel sang, we didn't start the fire. Now, I personally don't like anyone shouting swear words or giving reporters or anyone the finger, but I certainly can understand the frustration of the Trump voters. For much of the past 3 years, many in the press have been either underestimating or ridiculing both Trump and his supporters. And raise your hand if you're tired of journalists making themselves the center of every story.
I try to calmly talk to a lot of these folks at the rally last night to say, listen, hey, tell me what you want to talk about here. Why are you guys so upset with us? And they would kind of go through a list of questions. Most of the questions were about, why don't you guys report positive news about the president?
Okay, so why don't you report positive news about the president? I wonder why these people are so understandably upset. According to the Media Research Center, in the first 2 months of 2018, 91% of broadcast networks' coverage of Trump was negative. The favorite story, of course, was the Russia investigation. And of the time devoted to covering the administration, 1/4 of it, 24% of that airtime, was devoted to the Mueller probe. No other administration topic received that much attention, not even close. And when they do cover another topic, like immigration, for instance, it's 92% negative, only 8% positive. And you wonder why people are ticked off? It's not surprising that in a new survey by the research firm Brand Keys, Fox News is near the top of the trusted names in news. CNN down near the bottom. Of course, the media may not be great at objectivity, but they're total pros at blame deflection.
These opinions that these folks have at these rallies, they're shaped by what they see in the primetime hours of Fox News. It's very unfortunate, but it's a pitting of American against American, and honestly, it needs to stop.
The erosion of basic standards of civility and human decency continues. It's not just a Republican phenomenon, but we are being led down the drain by President Trump.
Oh, a little overstatement there, Jake. I mean, so it's our fault, or it's the president's fault that the press refuses to do no soul searching at all? It's none of the blame is theirs? Have they not seen those surveys that show trust in their network, their product, at near an all-time low? A new poll from Quinnipiac found that a majority of all Americans disapprove of how the media covered Trump. Among Republicans, nearly 9 in 10 disapprove. But still, come on, it's the people who are the problem, not the press.
This kind of unfocused, visceral anger at the other side are really neutral people like folks on the press corps. It can lead to this.
It's just beyond reprehensible comparison. I mean, we won't talk about Steve Scalise. We'll talk about that later. I don't recall the same level of concern over the violence at, let's say, Berkeley when conservatives speak, or outside the Trump rally in San Jose during the campaign. Remember when that guy was pummeled? When the left engages in not just harsh language, but criminal acts of violence, destroying property, putting police lives at risk, the media work overtime to understand the underlying anger and upset.
I see a lot of people expressing their humanity in the face of a candidate who has really built his candidacy on denouncing their humanity. And I mean, yeah, there are a few people out there who are not out there to actually protest, but at the end of the day, they accomplished their goal. They got on TV and they got their issues aired.
They have grievances. It's not like it's mindless or they just want violence. They're speaking up against someone who's really attacking their community.
We want you to know that our hearts are out there marching with them.
Did any of them bemoan the vile nature of the commentary or the signage at, let's say, the Women's March?
I didn't know devils could be resurrected, but I feel Hitler in these streets. Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Didn't Madonna manage to do all that yoga? I thought that was supposed to make you really calm and zen-like. Where were the liberal complaints about this rhetoric?
And with this kind of inspiration, I will go and take Trump out tonight.
I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish.
How dare he say the things he does? Of course I want to punch him in the face.
Right. Where was all the media outrage about that? Did President Obama or other well-known Democrat leaders decry that approach, that language, that vitriol, that incitement to violence? Of course they did not. Because after all, President Trump, the people who supported him, continue to support him, they all deserve that and worse. And where were the media condemnations when women who were affiliated or support the president, work for the president, were harassed at restaurants, driven from movie theaters? The liberal media don't have any difficulty finding tough words to describe Trump supporters, though.
It's truly dangerous.
Yes.
And we keep referring to his base. Well, I'm sorry, but the people we saw the other evening at that rally, if that's his base, it's deranged.
Deranged? Well, I guess he kind of is an expert on deranged, sitting across Joe Scarborough for all these years. But come on, the selective media outrage is laughable. It's also kind of sad, but Come on, if it's directed at Trump, protest and violence are considered really patriotic and kind of cool. But otherwise, it must be condemned as dangerous. It's pretty simple. Look, the culture has been coarsened. The entertainment industry, music, films, billboards, television, everything is over-sexualized or too violent or just dumbed down altogether. But come on, this didn't start with Trump. It began about 50 years ago when liberals were on a mission to kick God out of the schools and when they began ripping down our basic institutions of civic life. And as this happened, Flyover America felt demeaned by the dominant culture, which came to see them as backwater, intolerant, and yes, even racist. And this just made them furious and resentful. But then came Donald Trump.
Our economy is soaring, our jobs are booming, factories are pouring back into our country, they're coming from all over the world. And the forgotten men and women of the United States are forgotten no more.
You can almost hear the peals of laughter at certain cable news studios after he says stuff like that. But most in that crowd and the audience across America, they like what they hear there. They don't want to be forgotten. My friends in the media, you cannot ridicule and attack a major part of the American electorate. You can't disparage them and the president they voted for every day and then expect gratitude and cordiality in return. But I hope everybody will take a breath and learn to treat each other with civility and respect. The protesters, the president, and the media and the way they cover them all. And that's the angle. Joining me now for reaction here in studio are two political heavyweights, Matt Schlapp on the American Conservative Union side and Philippe Reines, a former advisor to Hillary Clinton, and in California, a man who's written extensively about media hypocrisy, especially when it comes to violent rhetoric, Victor Davis Hanson of the Hoover Institution. Gentlemen, great to see all of you. Philippe.
I don't even know where to start. What do you want me to...
Your reaction.
My reaction is...
Your laughter is what I was writing about. You're laughing both at America or the supporters or the people at the rally?
I'm not laughing at America. I'm laughing because I see what happens if someone just watches this every night. Now, I understand if someone only watches another channel every night. It's very possible that you're not 100% right, you being Fox, and that CNN is not 100% right. And there's somewhere in between. But you don't get any of that. There's no common, I'm not going to be cutesy about common ground, but we were talking earlier about different conspiracy theories. There is nothing I could say to debunk one, because I would say, well, here, look at this Associated Press story, or here, look at this Fox story. There's nothing we all agree upon. So you have, yes, you have this toxic environment in the White House briefing room. I don't think it should be on TV anymore. But you also have a president who is lying. He is lying multiple times a day. He is lying at a rate more than anyone ever has.
True.
It is true.
It's not true.
He has lied 4,229 times.
That's a
the other day.
That's a slime from left-wing outlets. It's exactly what you're talking about. We can agree on truth. There is truth, and there are good reporters.
Do you fact check?
But that does not help. The fact-check organizations that all these groups are all paid by your left-wing buddies. And that shouldn't happen. We should have. There is truth, Laura. There is right. There is wrong. By the way, all politicians should be held to that standard. But I agree with you. You can't go out there as a journalist and say you're objective and then be on your Twitter feed making fun of me and my friends and my family on a regular basis. You don't get the habit both ways.
Do you think that the polling on the way that people feel about the media in general, whether they approve or disapprove of the coverage of the president, the majority, it's not a Fox poll,
no,
the majority does not approve of the way they cover the president, and the majority believe they're biased toward the liberal side of the equation. So I know you have your views about the president. I'm trying to keep this argument focused on this conflagration between the media and conservatives and the media and this administration. Victor Davis Hanson, you just wrote a column today about this, about the culture that we live in. Your reaction to what you saw and heard over the last few days and the angle.
Well, I think there's a certain elite that feel that because their aims are so virtuous, or they're so enlightened, or they're so well educated that the means to achieve them are okay. Take Jim Acosta. In reaction to that, a reporter at Politico said that the people basically at that rally had no teeth and they were garbage. We haven't heard that since Peter Strzok said that people smelled at Walmart. And you get into this deplorable and irredeemable, and you've got political activists that brag on Twitter that they go across from the White House and make noise so the president can't sleep. And it's all predicated on this contempt that they have for a geographical or a sociological or a cultural subset of America, and they're imbued with it. And the irony of it, Laura, is that when you take this Sarah Jeong that is now a member of the New York Times editorial board, she's a product of Berkeley, she's a product of Harvard Law School, and yet she's voicing racist sentiments are right out of the Middle Ages. And the same thing with Ocasio-Cortez. She's a Boston University graduate, but she's clueless on the Middle East or on basic economics. So red state America is presented with this paradox that this really well-educated, enlightened elite knows everything, but they really don't. And yet they disparage people on the basis of class, and we're reaping the whirlwind of that.
Yeah,
and I think everybody's got to take a big step back and stop.
You're talking about the new editorial board member of the New York Times, Sarah Young, who said among the most hateful things about white people. I guess when you're not white and you say hateful things about white people, the New York Times will still hire you if you delete your tweets and you say you're sorry. But okay, I'm for redemption. I think that's great. But wow, I mean, I can imagine other people tweeting other things that are more directed in favor of conservatives that were offensive. They would never hire them at the New York Times. But he made a point about
we
the elites.
don't know what the rules are anymore.
Yeah, the rules are different. When you say the elites, it's not necessarily about where you go to school. It's the way you look down upon regular people. A lot of those people at the Trump rallies, they don't probably go to fancy clothes stores and buy the fancy clothes. Certainly not like Paul Manafort does. They don't get the cool clothes. Maybe they don't, speak in the same highfalutin terms of other people. But they're good people, and they think America is in trouble, and they think Donald Trump has more answers than the in crowd. That's why they voted for him. They believe he fights for them. And the media don't get that. So focusing on the media, do you believe that they are giving the policies of this administration a fair analysis, Philippe?
I do, and I think you're defining unfair as coming up with a negative outcome. And that's assuming President Trump never makes any mistakes.
No, of course he does. I call him out for mistakes.
You do it on immigration all the time. I think the problem is elite is code for looking down on someone. Soy boy, calling someone beta male, low IQ. This is not one group looking down from a mountain saying, oh, the other group is scary.
No, I think people get offended and then they strike back. It's a bad cycle.
You have 100% of the country angry as hell. And there's no way, the media, to some extent, is one of the ways to hash it out. And they have been neutered. You have been neutered. The same way you talk to your crowd, Jim Acosta talks to his crowd.
But he's not an opinion journalist. I am. I'm not a reporter. I'm a commentator. I worked for the Reagan administration, and I clerked for Justice Thomas. And I don't pretend to be objective. I am an opinion journalist, but I think I'm fair, and I think there are great reporters out there.
You have incredible impact on facts and stories.
Sure,
I mean, Sean Hannity has single-handedly given incredible credence to some of the worst conspiracy theories.
No. First of all, if you're going to come on this network and attack Fox, Philippe, we can do this for an hour.
I'm sitting here. I think
conspiracy theories. You know what I think is a conspiracy theory? Saying garbage people jeering at another person, falsely accuse them of lying, flip them off, someone fetch a fainting cap. Like Mark Caputo, who says the most horrific things as a Politico reporter.
I don't know who she is. Not defending her.
Mark Caputo? You know who he is?
This Sarah Young person.
Yeah, well, that's the Sarah Young is the.
I think everyone has said things that they should regret, whether they do or not.
Right, but I'm not a reporter. These people are reporters. They're supposed to be calling balls and strikes, correct?
And they are. And when Sarah Sanders lies to them, they're calling it out.
Real quick.
No. Here's the thing. When Jim Costa goes to a Trump rally,
they're not, though.
They're going to be.
We'll get you in.
Obviously, you're going to have Trump supporters and conservatives. By the way, these are Americans. This is the audience they're trying to get. He can see the hostility in how they cover things. Why doesn't CNN listen to what the American people wants? Their ratings would be better.
I think they'd do better, actually. VDH, final thoughts.
Yeah, the disinterested Shorenstein Center at Harvard gave us a number of reports that 90% of the press coverage. This wasn't opinion journalism, it was slanted anti-Trump. So this idea on the one hand and the other hand is really disingenuous. Whether we like it or not, the media is from a particular subset of American life, and they feel it's their odyssey and their journey to delegitimize this president and the people who support him for a variety of cultural and class reasons. And I'm not saying that Trump is an angel, but the coverage is not disinterested, and to suggest it is really pathetic.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. And stay with us. We have an exclusive interview tonight with White House insider Kellyanne Conway. Next.
We're doing better in all of these states than we did on election night. Much better. Despite only negative publicity, only negative stories from the fakers back there. I got along great with Putin. And everybody said, wow, that was great. A couple of hours later, I started hearing these reports that, you know, they wanted me to walk up. Here's a podium here. They wanted me to walk up and go like this. Whatever happened to fair press? Whatever happened to honest reporting? These horrible, horrendous people.
Well, that was President Trump tonight in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, to discuss the president's relationship with the press and a lot of hot news. Let's bring in one of our close friends, at least mine for too many years to count, and the president's closest advisors, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We have been discussing the relationship with the press in the crybaby response, which I think is feigned, phony moral outrage. The horrible things said about this president, the horrible types of, violence at anti-Trump protests and smashing windows and the beating people up who have a cap on that says "Make America Great." But now the press is upset because some, 70-year-old lady yells at Jim Acosta. I mean, I don't get it.
I thought Press Secretary Sarah Sanders handled it beautifully today when she really read a bill of particulars, an entire litany of facts of things that have been said about her and some violence that has been incited against her, that she's the only press secretary in, I guess, U.S. history to hear her say it that's needed bodyguards. It's needed Secret Service. I had Secret Service when I got there for much the same reason. But, Laura, I have a slightly different take on all of this. I know that it may be annoying, it may be irritating, it may be unfair, it may even be biased at times. It certainly is. But I'm also not sure it's particularly relevant or consequential. The media's overall approval rating is now at 17 or 20%. I'll give the range. I saw a low of 17, a high of 20% in the latest polls, while the president's approval ratings are ticking upward, and particularly on matters that are of the most consequence to the American people, like his handling the economy, him trying to forge peace and prosperity around the globe. People know what they see, and what they see are their bonuses, their raises, the deregulation, the historic tax cuts. They have confidence in this economy, and they're spending more of their money. I was at that rally tonight with the president. I participated in the roundtable with him ahead of time also. People are absolutely buoyant. They know that beginning with Hillary Clinton, they were referred to as irredeemable and deplorable and looked down upon. They know that Barack Obama, when he was running for president, said these people who cling to their God and their guns and their, he's had other things to say, just always dismissing them. And this is why it's a very important point. I'm not sure they care anymore. I speak to these people all the time. You know what they care about? They care that they have a president who respects and takes action daily for the military, for the veterans, and for them. And look, let's not mistake what's going on here too. A lot of these journalists have very expensive 7-figure contracts, go on late night TV where they can yuck it up with somebody similarly situated who could just laugh all day long, particularly about the women in the Trump administration. Then they go and give speeches. I mean, they speak for free every single day, and half the country doesn't, well, most of the country doesn't listen to them. But then somebody pays them a lot of money to give speeches. Yeah. So they're raking it in. Listen, Donald Trump is absolutely right. President Trump, Laura, is absolutely correct when he says nobody's ever been better for the media than him. the ratings, certainly the revenues, the popularity of some of these
Kellyanne,
journalists.
I gotta jump in here because when I talk to my radio listeners every day, and I did a thing a couple of days ago, I said, tell me how the Trump economy is affecting your business, your family. Don't sugarcoat it. If it's not working, I want to hear from you. I did this for 3 hours.
We do too.
Okay, 3 hours. People, literally, I'm talking about truck drivers, salesmen, people in medical devices. You know what they say? People are happier. People are happier because they're not worried about waking up and saying, oh my God, am I going to lose my job tomorrow? I knew the economy was great, but until you hear from the regular people just saying, I don't know what these media are saying, everyone's unhappy, people are angry. People are happy because the economy is doing well. The Hill has a big piece today, Kellyanne, about how the tariffs that are trashed by the media and the Democrats, and so some of the Democrats, the media getting that wrong, too. The tariffs are very popular with businessmen across the United States, and they want more tariffs to level the playing field with China. So they're missing the story, and it's going to your point.
That's right. The president said today that China is way down now and that he's told everybody to be patient. But, Laura, I want to mention something else. Bias is not just, it doesn't come in the form of overtly one-sided, lopsided reporting. That's kind of easy to detect. Bias is also a selectivity of what gets covered and what does not. So just this week, you had the pool reporter from the New York Times say there was absolutely no news made when the president and Ivanka Trump and other office holders and high school students were in Tampa Bay at Tampa Bay Tech, so excited that the Perkins legislation had been reauthorized. It's going to benefit upwards of 11 million students across this country, but no news was made.
No, you don't want to cover that.
Just today, in the briefing room, this is so important, just today in the briefing room, we had cabinet members come and talk about what they are doing in 2018 to stop meddling and interference in our elections.
But Kellyanne, guess what happened?
You know why?
No. Guess what happened? Not only did they not cover it, Kellyanne, listen to what Chuck Todd said. Again, you had 4 or 5 top intel national security officials saying Russia meddled, we're going to stop it for the next time.
And here's what President Trump is doing.
Right, and this is what Chuck Todd said. Let's listen.
We begin tonight by trying to make sense of what happened this afternoon, and perhaps more importantly, why. For some, it's going to take more than one surprise briefing to convince them that what we heard today about cracking down on Russia has the full backing of the president, and that it was not an effort by a White House communications team desperate to turn the page from the other headaches they had been asked about all week.
Damned if they do, damned if they don't. Kellyanne, your reaction to Todd's point.
And I want to say something. Yeah, here's my reaction. In 2016, the president at that time, Barack Obama, and Clapper, and Brennan, and Comey, and others on their team had information that Russia was meddling, trying to interfere in our election, but they sat on it, they buried it, because I'm with her also meant with I'm going to bury the information we have about meddling. Fast forward, this president's in charge, his entire team is on task. The Secretary of Homeland Security said she's got a 50-state effort on way. They're investing in cyber and election security. Secretary Nielsen and Vice President Pence 2 days ago were in New York City for all the public to see. The media hardly covered this entire conference on cybersecurity and election security. But for this mainstream media, who, as you pointed out, covered the Russian story more than anything this calendar year, when it came to speaking from the podium about what this president's administration will do to stop it, to try to stop it, they're not covering it because it's not coming in the Manafort trial. It's not coming in the Mueller report. It's not coming out of the mouths of someone else. It's coming in a cohesive and positive fashion from this president and what he's going to do. So it's complete hypocrisy. Laura, if the mainstream media truly cared about election interference, they would be able to write a story or finish a sentence without mentioning Donald Trump's name.
All right,
they can't do it.
We're out of time. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. I had fun in the rain. Thank you.
All right, we'll continue to cover this and more. Stay there.
Ask your gastroenterologist about Entyvio. Entyvio, relief and remission within reach.
The Democrats keep talking about a blue wave this year, and once again, they've labeled it the year of the woman. Wasn't that 92? Not so fast. According to a new poll by the independent Women's Voice, a candidate's gender makes no difference to 83% of likely 2018 voters. Joining me now to discuss this, make sense of it, Harmeet Dillon, the RNC committeewoman from California, and Pam Hayes, a former Hillary Clinton campaign organizer. Great to see both of you. All right, let's start with you, Pam. Why should a person's sex matter in an election? I thought we were supposed to be away from labels and gender and nothing. Only thing matters is merit and what you bring to the equation. So why are we now labeling an election the year of the woman? Why isn't this just the year of great issues?
I think it is the year of great issues. I don't know why it's being labeled the year of the woman. I just think that one reason why people were referring to it as the year of the woman is because you had more women candidates than ever before. So that would be one reason. I don't think people are just going out and say, hey, she wears a skirt, so I'm going to vote for her, when her ideas are so far-fetched and they're different from mine. I don't think people really do that. I just think that's just one of those tantalizing facts that posters do to make people come to their side of the equation.
All right, I want to play this Michelle Obama soundbite. This is from September of last year when she talked about the women who turned out for Donald Trump. Let's watch.
Any woman who voted against Hillary Clinton voted against their own voice. What does it mean for us as women that we look at those two candidates as women, and many of us said, that guy, he's better for me. His voice is more true to me.
Harmeet, again, it seems to look down on women who voted for Trump. If you vote for a conservative or Republican, you're voting against your interests. But with this booming economy, every level of the economy is up. Female employment, optimism, manufacturing, all of it up, up, up. How can you say that this year after all these results are already in?
Well, Laura, they say it because they're out of ideas. They've got nothing. I mean, the year of the woman was 2016, by the way. It didn't work very well for the Democrats. They tried to use gender to catapult an otherwise bad candidate across the finish line, and it didn't work. You know, I'm a woman business owner, and I can tell you that woman or man, everybody who's a business owner or who works for a living looks at their 401k, looks at their rising salary, looks at job competition from people who are not in the country, who are not citizens, and, you know, everybody factors those things in. So it's very passé for leaders to say that women should be voting according to their, you know, to their lady parts, as opposed to with their brains, with their pocketbooks, and voting for their future. So now our party does need to do a good job, though, of defining those issues that all Americans care about, particularly people who had households are caring about health care, they're caring about safety, and, you know, we could do a better job in Congress of making sure that we pass Obamacare, making sure that we get border security and those issues like that. That's what women, that's what men care about. We all care about that.
That's
Pam,
what people care about, Laura. I don't think it's so much this gender focus as people want to make us think it is. I think it's about the issues. And when I got to worry about what's going to happen if, God forbid, something happens to my daughter and she's raped and you can't even get a way to deal with that, that's a problem.
When you say a way to deal with that, you mean
abortion. That's the word you're searching for.
That's what I mean, precisely.
Yeah.
Okay,
why
so
not just say it?
Because I don't want
just say
to.
it.
I can say it the way I want to.
Pam, so what you believe in this election cycle is that one of the preeminent issues on the minds of voters is the ability to get an abortion. You think that will be outlawed in the United States, all 50 states? And why do you think that?
I think it becomes dangerous when it's outlawed in some states. I think it should be a policy across the United States. I think it's a choice for women for abortion, but that's not the top issue, at least for me, and I'm also
It's not the top issue for any American. The top 10 issues, abortion, I don't think abortion's even the top 10, is it?
I don't think so either, Laura,
yeah, so
but I will tell you this. I brought it up because I wanted to make a point, and that's why I brought it up.
I'm not finding it. Let me read you the comment from Hillary Clinton, because we are talking about there are a lot of women candidates, and they're doing actually really well. The Democrats are fielding a lot of female candidates who are doing well so far in the polling and a lot of open seats. to both of you. This was what Hillary Clinton said. She said, "We do not do well with white men, and we do not do well with married white women." And part of that is an identification with the Republican Party and a sort of ongoing pressure to vote the way your husband, your boss, your son, whoever believes you should. Pam, do you agree with what Mrs. Clinton said there? That, I mean, you read between the lines, not even have to read between the lines, is that, you know, these women are just kind of stupid. They just vote the way their men want them to vote.
Oh, no, I don't think the vast majority of women are stupid and vote the way their men want them to vote. But I think there are some people who do that, just like, you know, there are women who might just vote for women because they're women. I think the issue is what is important to the majority of people in America. For me, it's a pocketbook issue. I'm a business owner.
Right, so you should be for Trump.
No,
How
I
are
should
you?
never be for Trump.
Oh my God.
I have very serious issues with him.
How is your business doing?
It's doing okay. It was doing better under George Bush. I'll put it like that.
Was it doing better under Obama?
My
than it
business
is
is doing great.
You know, I don't have that type of business. I'm a lawyer. Okay.
All right. Well, so is Harmeet. So am I. But I'm recovering.
So am I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get a job.
All right, Harmeet,
like
last
yours.
word.
Yeah, Laura, the type of candidates the Democrats are fielding in this election cycle are the extreme, unfortunately. These younger women who are, you know, standing for socialism, Ocasio-Cortez, women who are far left, women who want to abolish ICE, women who are open borders, women who are abortion extremists. And, you know, frankly, I don't think that message is going to resonate with the majority of the voters. The majority of the voters are somewhere in the middle. And so, you know, I hope that I'm correct that these, you know, young women, attractive, good-looking candidates aren't necessarily going to get the vote in November, but that depends on the Republicans to field people with better ideas.
I'd like you to say that I don't care what party you like or you don't like Trump, you like Trump. You have to like this economy. If you don't like this economy, I can tell you this, it's not going to get better than it is right now. I mean, it might get marginally better, but this is a great time. If you want a job in the United States, I can't think in my lifetime of a better time to be an American citizen. We really appreciate both of you joining us.
I think it's a continuous flow. Actually, it wasn't bad with Obama. It wasn't bad.
I didn't say it was bad. I said right now
it was flat.
Yeah.
It was flat line. It's terrific now.
4.1 GDP, taking China to task. I mean, this is a factual argument at this point. The American people give him very high marks on the economy, thankfully about 55%, and that's a good thing. It's good for all Americans. Whoever was president presiding over these policies, these are good policies for the American people. I really appreciate both of you joining us tonight, Harmeet and Pam. Thanks so much.
Thank
and still
you.
ahead, Herman Cain on the brewing battle between the president and former President Obama. Glenn Greenwald on President Trump versus the old world order. Also, stay with us. You know that old saying is the enemy of my enemy, my friend? Well, if the enemy is President Trump, well, it sure seems so. The neoconservative think tank American Enterprise Institute and the Liberal Center for American Progress recently joined forces to publish a report blasting President Trump's foreign policy. That's a shock. You heard that right. President Trump has both sides of the swamp so riled up, they're now collaborating. Joining me now for reaction, Glenn Greenwald, a journalist at the website Intercept, who's written about the recent alliance between the Bush-era neocons and liberals. Glenn, it's good to see you tonight. This is wild, but for us conservatives who, you know, took a step back after the Iraq War and said, oh, this was a mistake, we've got to be much smarter on military interventionism, I guess it's not all that surprising, but it's just now out in the open. What we thought is now true.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most undercovered stories of the Trump era, this sort of ideological shift. You know, when I started writing about politics in 2005, the root of all evil for liberals was the American Enterprise Institute. You know, John Yoo and Bill Kristol and the Kagans, Daniel Pletka. And these are the people who are now joining with the establishment wing of the Democratic Party to defend this very militaristic, internationalized, institutional assertion of military force, which they see President Trump, in a lot of cases rightly, as well as people on the left, as opposing. And this predates Trump. A lot of neocons were preparing to support Hillary Clinton before Trump even became a candidate because they found her brand of hawkishness. She criticized Obama a lot for being insufficiently belligerent, quite attractive. And this shift is really quite profound.
Well, and he's doing it in other ways, too. I mean, Trump has blown up a lot of old alliances. The Koch brothers, you're seeing that split. Richard Trumka saying he's not ruling out supporting Trump in 2020. I think it's good to mix all this up. I mean, all these old alliances didn't deliver all that a greater result, at least on foreign policy, and a mixed result vis-a-vis United States versus China on the economy. And Trump's like, well, I'll work with anybody who will work with me. And I guess his enemies are saying the same thing.
Absolutely. I mean, the view of Trump, for example, that I'll meet with any leaders without preconditions was Barack Obama's flagship position in 2007 that horrified Hillary Clinton. And especially on these kind of international trade agreements like the World Trade Organization and NAFTA and TPP, opposition to those, which has become Trump policy, was orthodoxy on the left for a long time, and that too is driving the establishment wings of the Republican and Democratic parties crazy because they're financed by the same banking interests, the same corporate interests that love these globalized industries that have been terrible for the American worker but great for American hedge funds and banks, and that too is causing a remarkable shift in a lot of coalitions that I think will endure long after Trump is gone.
Yeah, I think the old order is forever disrupted. I don't think that's ever coming back as much as they kick and scream. And speaking of unholy alliances, Glenn, I want to get your thoughts on something else. The Intercept has written about former LA Times writer and current NBC darling intelligence reporter Ken Dilanian. Now, tell us more about the relationship with the CIA and why we probably see him on TV so often. Dilanian as an LA Times reporter and what he used to share with the CIA.
Well, it's really amazing because we at The Intercept did a FOIA request where we asked the CIA to turn over their communications with reporters, which they can't refuse to do on national security grounds because they're communicating with journalists. And they turned over emails that had all kinds of communications between the CIA and Ken Dilanian, where he would say, I'm about to report on you. Here's the draft that I want to say. What do you guys think? What should I change? And we published all those emails, and lots of liberals said Ken Dilanian is the worst. He's a servant of the CIA. He got kind of pushed out of the LA Times, but ever since then, he's kind of fell up the ladder, and he's now the star reporter at the MSNBC and NBC, where that's all he does is just blindly and mindlessly repeats what the CIA tells him to say. He gives them anonymity, and he's essentially their puppet and their mouthpiece, and that's called journalism over at MSNBC.
No, but he's an expert. I mean, they hold him out as a real expert on Brennan, Clapper, the whole crowd. And so he speaks with authority because he covered it for that much time. But until you did that FOIA request, I don't think no one knew the backstory.
Yeah, I mean, I think American journalism in general, for a long time, it's been a critique of mine going back to the Bush years, has been far too deferential to these intelligence operatives who operate in the dark. They give them anonymity. That was why we got the Iraq War. But I think Ken Dilanian takes this horrible practice, and he's kind of the world champion at benefiting his own career by just acting as a stenographer for the intelligence community. And he has become a hero of Democrats and liberals who watch MSNBC because now the CIA, remarkably, is the agency that they venerate and revere more than anyone else, and therefore a journalist who is their spokesperson is kind of a TV star for them. It's really a remarkable and bizarre and surreal turn of events.
Oh, my goodness, it's wild. Thanks so much. We really appreciate it. And by the way, President Obama is returning to the political fray in a big way. Herman Cain joins us next to break down the heavyweight matchup between Obama and President Trump.